Welcome, listeners, to this podcast of Godspeed Wyoming. Today, I'll be doing something a little bit different. I have been getting a lot of questions via my email just about different things related to the podcast that I've been speaking about. And one of those questions that I continually have been getting, and it's a little complex question, but I wanted to talk about it in this episode of Godspeed Wyoming because I feel like it's important. And that question has been, Jen, why do you think bad things happen? And how do you overcome them? And I felt like that was a really deep question, and one that I wish I could answer. Why do bad things happen? I think it's something when something really dark happens to all of us, we just sit and reflect and think, why is this happening? And I think a lot of people ask me this question just because for those of you that do know, that are following the podcast, you will know that I'm a spinal cord injury. I was in a severe car accident when I was 16. But those of you that are new to the podcast and are not aware, I live my life in a wheelchair. And I just went through some really amazing times after my car accident where I was expected not to live or not to survive. And I had this miracle moment where I survived and I was able to breathe on my own. And it was truly a miracle moment. But then soon after that, the realization that I'd be spending my life in a wheelchair and that wouldn't be able to utilize my legs was just a really dark, difficult time for me at the age of 16. And I remember going through a very deep depression while I was going through physical rehabilitation in a rehabilitation hospital, just feeling so hurt and so sad. I have to say it was one of the darkest moments of my life. And I think a lot of times people will look at me and still see that dark moment. Will still see me sitting in a wheelchair. For so many people that don't know me, I could almost see on their face just a sense of sorrow and just a sense of they feel so sorry for me. Like, how could that happen to somebody like me? I was actually at an event not too long ago, and I was sitting there and I was talking to a bunch of people, and I'm just smiling, laughing, just being myself. And this gentleman came from all the way across the room and introduced himself. He said, I just wanted to meet you because I really wanted to understand how someone could be sitting in a wheelchair and still be smiling and just come across as so happy and positive. And, that was a little bit surprising to me because now 30 years later, I don't really think about it that much, but it did bring me back to that moment and just that reality of things aren't great all the time. And even now, it's hard living your life in a wheelchair, when these big snowstorms come and, I'm stuck in the snow and I have to wait for somebody to maybe come and help push me through a wheelchair, with my wheelchair through something. And it is deep and dark sometimes, but I think the most important part is I don't have the answer of why bad things happen, but what do we do when bad things do happen? And I feel like that's something that I can share with you today in this episode, and maybe things that I utilize and do to help me get through those dark times and what I've learned through them. So there's 3 characteristics that I feel that have been life-changing for me that I've been able to develop and learn from my tragic car accident, and then just times where things have been really hard for me. So first off, one of those characteristics has been resilience, just really building resilience within myself. That car accident, I had to learn to really dig deep to get through that really severe depression, to deepen my soul and just find the endurance and the strength to just decide to move forward. There's a scripture that many of you might be familiar with, but we can do all things through Christ that gives us strength. And I would continuously repeat that. And, when you're going through a physical rehabilitation, many of the physical therapists, they're very hard on you. They will They're like, don't ask for help. Don't ask for help. You have to dress. You have to push yourself. You have to get in and out of your car. They want you to learn to live your life as independent as possible. And after that, I really got that in my mind. Like, resiliency means being independent and not asking for help. But then as time went on, one thing that I learned is that true resilient people, and I saw this in myself, are those that do ask for help, are those that do surround themselves with others that will love them, that will support them, that will help them through really difficult times. So when I talk about gaining resiliency or the characteristics of resiliency, it's truly not about just focusing, I have to be strong, I have to be independent. What I've learned is resiliency is really surrounding yourself with amazing people that will help you get through things. You know, God didn't intend us to do this journey alone. And I feel like to get through dark times, leaning on others and having others help you and love you through things is a critical part of getting through difficult times. Number 2, other characteristic that I've really learned and that I implement is just having great compassion for others. I think back to when I was 16 years old and, this happened to me. And at that time, before it happened to me, I was selfish. I was a selfish teenager that just really thought about myself, thought about my friends, thought about what was happening in my world. But when you're in a hospital for many months and you're interacting with many other people, you're seeing all the hardships that they're going through. You're seeing all the things that have been taken away from them. You're feeling their pain. You're seeing their struggles. And it really just shows you how to be compassionate with others, how to inspire others, how to love others, how to just give everything that you can give. And that's what really led me initially on my path of just working in healthcare, because I really wanted to be able to show others that people with disabilities can move on, and then just be able to show compassion and love through difficult times when you're going through many, many hardships. So I think learning compassion and love through darkness is very, very important. And after my accident, I learned that I'm not in control. So truly that resilience, I learned just a reliance on God, just reliance on God as our maker, and just knowing that I'm not the one that's in control, that He is the one that is truly in control. I would have never guessed 30 years ago as a 16-year-old, I would lose the use of my legs. There would have been never one moment that I would have thought that. And then it just really taught me throughout my whole life. There's been many episodes, not just being able to lose my legs, but, then my son was premature. I would have never expected that we would be in a NICU and my son would be fighting for his life at the same time as well. And so there's so many episodes in our life that we ask, God, why is this happening to us? And we just truly have to learn to let go and let God. And now, after 30 years of my tragic accident, and my son is now 10, and those are true dark times that, we've been able to overcome. And now I see years later that I have a wonderful life, a successful job, an amazing husband, this beautiful son that's so smart and intelligent, and just be like, okay, God truly has a plan, and learning to just let go and let God. There is a wonderful scripture that I always refer back to, and it's Jeremiah 29:11, that tells us, "For I know the plan I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Now, if I would have read that 30 years ago when I was sitting in my hospital room, I would have definitely had a hard time believing that God had plans for me to prosper and not to harm me. I think I would have challenged that, and I probably would have challenged it really hard. But then starting to let go, and again reflecting on my life now. I wouldn't change it for the world. I have such a beautiful life, and though it's not perfect, and though I have daily challenges that come my way, what I have learned, again, is resilience, and that means having people help me through my life, just compassion, and then just being able to let go and know that God has a plan. So for those of you that are listening and may be questioning something that is bad that has happened to you recently, or just wondering, what does God have planned for my life? I hope this short podcast episode will give you an encouragement just to be able to have strength to persevere during difficult times, and the willingness to learn and open your eyes and seek, what am I really supposed to be learning in this dark time? And also to have faith to know that God will guide you through every storm. So again, thank you for listening to this episode of Godspeed Wyoming. If you have any questions ever for me or feedback, I'd love to hear it at godspeedwyoming@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share and like it. That would be very wonderful. So again, thank you for being here. This is Jen Crouse. And until next time, Godspeed Wyoming.